Okay, welcome everybody. This is a book review. The book I will be talking about in this video is Dark Gate, Key to the Left-Hand Path. The author is Paula M. Cavanet, and let's get right into it. To do a quick summary of this book, this is kind of an introductory tome to, in general, modern Western left-hand path esotericism. It's mostly focused on Satanism, Luciferianism, and demolatry in their many forms. It explains how to navigate common concepts on the left-hand path and also the interpretation of some of those concepts. And it is a very useful resource for absolute beginners. I will say, when I was starting out, I wish I had a book like this, and I'll explain exactly why. Some good points. So this book is not only very useful in its main body about explaining the different types of Satanism and Luciferianism, including ones you don't often see talked about, specifically Lilithianism. And there are six appendices. One of them is a really massive table of herbalism, which I think is one of the most useful ones I have seen. Usually in books like this, it's kind of shoved into a section on herbalism, and it's not that useful outside of somewhere else you can find on the internet or something. What I also like is that another one of the appendices is literally just the Goetia. So if you buy this book, you're basically buying a combination demolatry, Satanism, Luciferianism tool, and that is a big reason why it's helpful for beginners. Something that surprised me about the book is that the author actually talks about how to look for cults and some of the big red flags, especially when it comes to satanic cults. And honestly, as someone who's been practicing this kind of stuff for 6 years and has seen a lot of problematic things in the space, I think that's going to be a huge and helpful resource for any beginners just starting out or people who are not sure quite where to start, because it is a massive problem, especially on the left-hand path. A lot of things I like about the book. It's very non-dogmatic. It's more of a book explaining how to do things rather than how things should be done, if that makes sense. The resources are also quite accessible. Most of them are websites, and the ones that aren't, I have some of the actual books that this author references, and they are kind of useful books in that too. So clearly the author knows where to look for information, even if a lot of the information referenced isn't exactly the most scholarly. A lot of the sources are at least from the source, and probably the most debatable thing about this is that there are several sources pulled directly from Wikipedia, which is not awful, but I understand if some people can be a little frustrated or skeptical of that because of the nature of Wikipedia. And speaking of kind of more shortcomings of the book, so when I got this book, I was not expecting like a great deal of discussion on Eastern Left-Hand Path philosophy. It's very hard to find books on Tantra that's not just, sex, and I think the author has fallen into the trap of thinking that that was all Tantra is just kinky sex stuff in a yogic practice, when it's really a lot more than that. And outside of mentions of yoga and Kundalini chakra stuff, Tantra is not mentioned as much as I would have liked, which I think is a massive shortcoming, given that the term left-hand path itself comes from a Sanskrit term and originated in tantric practices. And speaking of that, it's very clear, what type of systems the author is familiar with. A lot of the stuff you see in this book is either demolatry or kind of like a Luciferian satanic thing. The Satanism is kind of a mix of LaVeyan philosophy with theistic Satanism, and that is very obvious to me as somebody who used to be a Satanist, who has read demolatry works and is familiar with Luciferianism. I read this book and it was basically like reading all the other books in my library at once. That's why I feel like it's more towards beginners, especially the fact that, especially in the midsection of the book, it talks a lot about rituals, mostly Western ritual magic. Other than some chaos magic techniques, especially in the form of sigils, that's mostly what you're getting out of this book. So, if you're not a beginner, or you know a lot about the left-hand path already, this book might only be useful for you if you're teaching others or starting a coven where you need to recommend a resource everybody can use. And to reiterate, I absolutely do recommend this book for people who are interested in the subject of Western left-hand path practices, either as an armchair enthusiast or as a beginner on the path. For intermediates or advanced, it can be useful, but mostly in specific circumstances, like if you've practiced, tradcraft for a while, but want to, read up a little bit on demolatry, this is a good reference. If you have all the books that S. Connolly has, and 15 books on Satanism, and the Goetia, and at least 3 different iterations like I have, then it's probably not going to be as useful for you. That being said, I am glad I picked up this book, because I will reiterate, I wish I had this book 6 years ago when I was just starting out. I think this is a great book if you're just starting out. Please do not miss out on this book if you want to learn more and you don't know where to start about the left-hand path. And that's it for this video. If you like what you see on this channel, at the very least consider subscribing. I try to post a new video every other Saturday as of now. And thank you for watching this video. I hope to see you around.